Welcome to MambleTalks.
I come from the finance industry, banking industry for about 25 years. If success was as important as breathing and failure was as important as losing a loved one, would you work differently?
You're never as motivated as when you want to go to the toilet.
Then they try to change a behavior and they wait another 30 days, another 90 days to fix a problem. It drives me crazy, Sona. People going to networking events because they went to a networking event. If you haven't researched me, what I do, and what my business does, don't tell me you're going to help my business grow. Don't use AI to generate a spam message to me. We have a tendency of creating a false sense of activity. I think networking should change as a whole. It should be giving type environment. Is if everybody was giving to each other, obviously there's going to be somebody that needs to receive.
He's asking, how do you encourage someone's will gap?
Understand motivation and drive of their employees. The problem's probably you, right? Let's not talk around it. 2024, let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to MambleTalks, our brand new platform for learning practical insights from top professionals around the world around the topics of business growth. Today is our first session, the session which we've got inspiration from our first guest, Eddie Konialian. Hi, Eddie Jan.
Good morning.
Today we'll be speaking about sales and networking. But before we dive in, I wanted to say a few words about the idea of Mamble Talks and how we decided to start this initiative. It's all about the deep human to human practical knowledge sharing because we live in the world where there is a lot of superficial content, a lot of AI backed influencers, yeah, and we wanted to do something different to really go grab people who have real expertise and a lot of deep knowledge and to convince those people to get on the stage and to get hands-on like insights coming from their experience, backed by their experience. Let's kick this off. Edijan, why don't you start with telling us a little bit about yourself?
Wonderful. Awesome. Excellent. Sona, thank you for making me the guinea pig. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been actually dreaming about an opportunity like this. So I thank you for making me the first to go on Mamble Talks. A little bit about my background. I come from the finance industry, banking industry for about 25 years. And just recently, I would say about 5.5 years ago, I came up with a concept of accountability through referrals, through networking, built up Directrope.com, which we'll talk about later on, not important right now. I want to share some knowledge with people around accountability. And most of the consulting, most of the coaching that I do is based around self-awareness and accountability, identification of opportunities. It's focused around how you operate versus how you point fingers at others. Before I get started, I actually want to give a quick shout out to all the people that RSVP'd for the event. I'm completely blown away at the idea that we have representation from South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, India, multiple places in the United States, Texas, Boston. I think we have Wisconsin, California. I can go on for the next hour talking about all the wonderful people that RSVP'd, and just know that I'm extremely grateful to have this opportunity. So we'll actually get right into it, guys. This is my strategy. These are my ideas. Feel free to disagree with them. This is the way how I operate. Feel free to apply them to yourself. If not, that's okay too. It's open dialogue. So here we go. The basic concept of sales always obviously starts off with questioning. Somebody named Richard Alzibler from my Comerica days actually said that to me once in the training. Be interested, not interesting. So that's where I always go back to when I talk about natural progression in questions. And the reason why I came up with that title is around gaining the right to ask the next question in a conversation, not jumping to what you want to sell someone. So it's being able to build rapport and progress into a place where people feel vulnerable enough to give you that information. Vulnerability, at least for me, is the key. Is you can't ask people to be vulnerable with you if you're not willing to be vulnerable with them. Sona, this is your favorite quote. If success was as important as breathing and failure was as important as losing a loved one, would you work differently? You have to make sure that your work ethic is impeccable. You always have to go back to the core and understand that there's something more important than just hitting a sales goal. just getting the next client, getting the next prospect, entering the next call into your CRM. There is something more to it. For me, I've always said my family life is so important to me that I work accordingly. I put family first. I put my work ethic as if my family was on the line. So, Sona, you have a different way of saying this. You can feel free to say what you say. I love it. It stuck with me from the last time we spoke.
Yeah, my version was that you're never as motivated as when you want to go to the toilet.
I thank you for sharing that. So essentially, the value of work ethic is second to none. You have to wake up every day working as if it's as important as breathing, or if you fail, that you are losing a loved one. Yes, it is serious. It is serious to think about it that way. But our jobs, our careers, our reputation, our brand in today's world, our brand is basically on the line based on our word, our commitment, our dedication. I'll leave that up there for a second. Most people usually focus on developing skill sets before they focus about identifying the real issue. And what is the real issue? It's a will gap versus a skill gap. Are you really working to your maximum capacity before you develop your skill? I usually put it in the athletes terminology is there's a lot of athletes that develop their skills, but they never get in the game. They never take risks to get into the game. So how do you know what's broken that you go back and work on unless you're actually practicing? When you're setting goals, when you're talking about identifying opportunities, make sure you go back and look at your will gap. Look at your return on activity versus return on investment. And keep in mind that if you do one thing for your business every single day, you're doing 365 things a year for your business. You're going to be able to convert something, anything to help you grow. So what I was telling Sona and what I tell most people is every time, every day you sit down and analyze your activities, all right, find out what you're doing on a daily basis. Don't worry about the big goal. Don't worry about the year-long goal. Worry about what you can manage daily. The reason I say that is because managing daily activities and routines is so much easier to fix. It's so much easier to analyze. Either you did or you didn't. And tomorrow you could actually make up a gap of, hey, you know what? I didn't do what I need to do yesterday, so I could do two of them today. Most people wait 30 days. Let's pull up the monthly report, right? Let's pull up the quarterly report. Then they try to change a behavior and then wait another 30 days, another 90 days to fix a problem. So before you realize that your behaviors are the issue, you're already minimum 60 days in. How many 60 days do you have in a year versus how many 1 days do you have in a year? So analytically speaking, and this is all right, I'll risk it. Is I've done 5 years of analysis on some of the teams that I've coached. All right, most people are usually working about 3.5 hours a day. I'm not asking you to work 8 hours a day. Here in the stateside, 8 hours is a minimum. Okay, you have to be at work for 8 hours. Being at work for 8 hours and working for 8 hours are two different things, right? And we have coffee breaks, lunch breaks, bathroom breaks, conversation breaks. Okay, your kid texts you, your family texts you, step out. You know what? Extended lunch. I was 15 minutes late, 10 minutes early. All these things encompassing or get encompassed into your day. So by the time you realize that you were there for 8 hours, if you get 3 hours worth of work in, we're good. So my strategy is essentially just give me one more of anything per day. One more hour, one more call, one more visit, one more customer conversation. Realize that you personally have a conversion rate. So it doesn't matter what you're selling, doesn't matter what conversation you're having, you have a conversion rate. If you do enough calls, if you do enough conversations, something is going to happen. So now, with that being said, is that go back and look what it is that you are not doing and you are doing on a daily basis to achieve the results that you have right now. So looking backwards at your results is a defining factor of what you're going to do in the future. So about activity management, all right? What activities do you do and what kind of results do they yield? How do they convert? Take some time to analyze the activity. Don't just do activities for the sake of doing something. And I talk specifically in the networking world, it drives me crazy, Sona. People going to networking events because they went to a networking event, but go with the purpose of accomplishing something. For me, I'm a give first type of person. So I go to networking events to find opportunities to give. There's a famous saying by Zig Ziglar. If you haven't read his books, please do. Zig Ziglar says, if you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want. But it's inherently, it's in the future. But help enough people get what they want. That becomes the key. So when you go to an event or when you do any type of an activity, please, I beg you, analyze. Don't just go there. If you're going to go there to make friends, go to a bar, go to a restaurant, go, I don't know, library, church, I don't care. Don't go to a networking event to waste people's time. It's not a show. This is for me at least. I go there, I hate people who approach you. So what do you do? What do you do? Oh, I'm a whatever. Go there with a purpose. If you're sending out an email, send out the email with the idea that you are going to be the person that's receiving that email as well. Would you want that email? If you don't want that email, don't send it to somebody. Have that respect for their time. If you're spamming on LinkedIn, oh my God, this dialogue that I've had about LinkedIn, and we're streaming this on LinkedIn live, but respect people's inboxes. If you tell me you're going to help my business grow, take a look at what my business is, right? Don't send me a message saying you're going to help my business grow. If you haven't researched me, what I do, and what my business does, don't tell me you're going to help my business grow. Don't use AI to generate a spam message to me. We have a tendency of creating a false sense of activity. Right? We are doing things just to say we are doing things. They're really not delivering success. You're not yielding the results that you want, which gets to kind of drives the next point is, do your activities yield the results that you want? So the issue is not an outside thing. Most of the time we talk about market conditions and rates and customers buying. I have talked to my wife and I'm not interested. We talk about all the things that happen outside. And when you look at yourself, you say, I sent out mailers, I sent out emails, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm prospecting, I'm doing this, but you really don't analyze the value of your activity. Is it intentional and purposeful? Are you doing something with the purpose of delivering the results that you want? Whatever it is, whether you're selling a product or you're growing talent, it's the same thing. Is you have to go back and evaluate your will gap. So destination versus journey, again, terminology is it's all about the journey. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the journey. What if you're going the wrong direction? So people are too busy enjoying the journey and they're driving the wrong direction. It happens all the time. And by the time they realize they're 20 years into their career and they're like, oh my God, I have to turn around and go back 20 years to start over. What I tell people is that time has compounded interest. Whether you make a good decision or a bad decision, it's compounded. So identifying your opportunities quickly and managing small quantities of time, hourly, daily, will give you the ability to fix your behaviors to go to the right destination. But again, you can't get in the car, start driving, then put a destination into the navigation. Let's move on. Intent versus action becomes a question of what's going on in people's mindsets, right? If your perception is one way versus somebody else's perception, you have to address that for yourself. You have to look at yourself and say, you know, what am I doing that's wrong? And how can I close the gap between somebody's perception and my perception? We always go back to identifying gaps in leadership because it starts there. It starts with culture, it starts with community. Which one of your employees would you call at 2 o'clock in the morning to come help you change a tire? And which one of them will actually show up, right? There's a gap in perception versus reality with employees and managers. Every manager I have ever dealt with, nobody ever says, you know what, I'm terrible at my job. Nobody, right? There's a word called mind-sighted. Mind-sighted is basically your mind sees what it's going to see. It's like short-sighted, nearsighted, far-sighted. But there's also a word called mind-sighted. Your mind sees only what it's capable of seeing. So you got to actually work really hard on developing that skill of identifying opportunities with yourself as a leader to drive motivation, to understand the needs of your employees, to build a successful culture, a team culture. So these are kind of things when I talk about will, it's not only about the employee side, it's also on the leadership and management side. Identifying skill gap is also important. I know we talked a lot about will gap, but once you get into the skill development piece, it becomes super key. It becomes refining the skills. When they go out and present a product, when they go out and present themselves or the company, is what are the issues with who they are as individuals, right? I do want to give you an exercise when it comes to identifying your prospects. I know most of you have heard of Myers-Briggs. It's personality testing. I believe there's 16 different personality types. I really narrow it down. there's four types of people in my network, me being one of those, right? It's all about me, it's all about you, it's all about it, and then it's all about us, right? There's an individual that's only focused on themselves. Look at me, how great I am. The person that's always about you, right? They're the givers, they're the ones that want to help all the time. There's the person that's really about no person. They're about the company, they're about the vision, they're about the goal, right? And there's, of course, there's the person that's all about the team. How can we win together? The one thing that I want you guys to do as an exercise, we've all heard it, right? 70% of communication, 90% of communication, it's all body language, yada, yada, yada. But what I want you to watch is what in that body language matters. Is when people are not put behind a desk, in an office, when they're free, who they are as people. And you start watching tendencies. What happens when they're thinking, what direction their eyes goes, when they're positive, negative, how they interact with people they're comfortable with versus people that they're uncomfortable with. What happens during conflict? Go to a public place, a park, a mall, whatever place you can find that has a lot of people interacting with each other, and sit down and watch. Take a pen and paper if you want, categorize them. That's what I do. That's an exercise I still do till this day. It helps me refine my skill in identifying opportunities because the questions that I ask tend to border on sensitive. Every single conversation that we have in our lives on a daily basis are about these three things: friends and family, job and career, and savings and retirement, which is money, right? So everybody that you ever come across, again, in my opinion, is talking about one of these three things. Your job becomes to listen and ask the right next question. So when we started this presentation, I talked about natural progression. This is what I'm talking about. Is for you to start off a conversation by saying, hey, so and so, are you married? Do you have children? And so on and so forth. You're going to catch somebody off guard and they're not going to answer the question. Not only that, they're going to throw up a wall and not want to interact with you. You have to develop that rapport by asking the right questions and the right next question. And most people don't know what question to ask next. What I will tell you is the next question is very easy if you're listening. What did you do last weekend? Whatever you answer is going to lead me to my next question. If you went to a barbecue, if you went to the park, my next natural question would be, who'd you go with? What did you do? But you have to listen. You have to watch what your questions do to that person's body language, and you have to hear what they're answering. We have hesitation to ask questions is because we don't want to get asked those questions. So I tell this story to everyone. It's a pretty funny story. So I come from the banking world, from the finance world, and most bankers have a hard time talking about money. I never understood that. Somebody gets in their car in the morning, gets showers, hopefully, gets dressed, sits in the car, drives to the bank to ask you for advice about money. And you, as a banker, have a hard time at talking about money. We would ask people, how much money do you make a year? Oh my God, that's off limits because we don't want to ask those questions. When I coach people in the insurance industry, all right, the hardest thing that they face is they have a hard time talking about death. And it blew my mind. Death is a hard question. I'm coming to you to talk about what's going to happen is when I die, what's going to happen to my family. Why do you have a hard time talking about death? We're all going to die. Yeah. You know, we say there's only two things are for sure is death and taxes. And taxes, I'm not really sure about. So death is only guarantee. Anyway, point being is that do not hesitate to ask the next question. The problem happens in most people is when they jump questions, right? And the example that we can laugh about this is when we were young, when I was young, you meet somebody at a bar or a restaurant, you walk up to them, and the first question you're going to ask, and then fill in the blank. What are those weird questions that you can? That's what I'm talking about. That happens in sales. And I don't believe in mirroring. By the way, side note, there's an old strategy called mirroring. So you like dogs, I like dogs. You have kids, I have kids. You like sports, I like sports. Be an individual, okay? What's interesting about you, okay, is going to be you as a person. You have your own feelings, your own thoughts. Your customers, your network, open yourself up to vulnerability. And those that don't appreciate or like you, that's fine. And I promise you, if you really put value to this, you will see every conversation from now on, you'll try to categorize in one of these three. I want to talk briefly about hope and fear. So the emotional roller coaster, those are where decision making happens. For me, at least the way I've identified it is any decision that is being made on those three emotions. It's either you're scared of something worse or you're hoping for something better. So whether you're a salesperson, the reason why you're doing your job is because you're afraid that your bills aren't going to get paid, you're not going to eat, okay, or you're hoping for a bigger paycheck or something, right? If you're a leader or you're a manager, you're doing what you're doing for hope and fear. Or if you're a customer, you're buying for hope and fear, right? It's a matter of understanding what that hope and fear is. And without having an extensive conversation with your customers, your employees, your manager, whatever it is you're not going to arrive to understanding what the hope and the fear is. So your job, if you're really an effective conversationalist, you're taking a person on this journey with you. And the question that I tend to ask is, what would you do for your kids that your parents couldn't do for you? That's, I think, is a super powerful question that is emotionally charged, that's been developed over so many years. So that's a question that kind of can give you both angles, right? If you don't have children, another question that I ask is, what would you do for yourself that your parents couldn't do for you? What would you do for your parents that they couldn't do for you? So if you really want to understand that emotional roller coaster of how you feel on the inside, that's how in depth you have to go with your questioning. That's where you have to get to, is to understand when buying decisions happen. If you start thinking about what is the emotional trigger behind the decision making, it'll help you get through a conversation much better. More importantly, it'll put value in the person that you're talking to. They no longer become a product, right? It's not the next product. It's not, let me give them my benefit statement. The value is in the person that you're talking to. Just to recap, remember, guys, identification, ownership, and management. There's 3 parts to the process. All right, make sure you identify the issue, identify your goals before you identify any type of skill opportunities. The problem's probably you, right? Let's not talk around it. The problem is probably you. Sona, change your boots, not the carpet.
Where's the carpet?
That's on the other presentation. It's most people tend to change the carpet before they change their shoes. They walk on clean carpet with dirty shoes. Carpet's gonna always get dirty. So unless you change your shoes, you're the problem. Fix you first before you fix anything else in your surroundings. Ownership is owning the problem and identifying who's gonna own it. So it always works back to us, and work on yourself on a daily basis. Manage small portions of your days, of your years, of your weeks. Okay. And finally, work as a team to function. Do not separate these guys are my sales team, these guys are my operation team. Everybody within an organization is your business partner. All right. Doesn't matter how fast or how good of a car you have, whether you have a Ferrari, Lamborghini, whatever, right? If you're missing a single wheel, I don't care. That's a $500,000 car. It's not going anywhere, right? So whether it's a wheel, steering wheel, stick, whatever, window, everything matters in an organization, and everything matters in a relationship. Everybody has to do their part. I'll open up for any questions anybody has. No questions really off limit until it's off limit. So feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
I've got a question to start with. By the way, I would put the claps. I just don't have the admin access. So we'll do it.
Thank you, thank you.
So yeah, a question that I haven't yet asked you is, what is your biggest failure throughout these years?
My biggest failure is I'm probably the next one. Look, I think, okay, so I will be extremely vulnerable. My biggest opportunity, I think, in general in my career has been not developing a thicker skin, not being able to take criticism early on. And now in hindsight and looking back, is what's made me come up with these strategies and trying to figure out solutions to problems has been all the negative, positive, whatever feedback that I've gotten from either bad managers, bad leaders, or good managers and good leaders, right? I can think back to a lot of different people, but my biggest issue is I took offense. I was too sensitive to the coaching. And right now, as older person, right, older, I don't want to say old, but older person, I look back and I'll say, if I didn't have those people in my life, I would not have been stronger today. So I think that's the biggest opportunity. And I'm always looking at what's the next problem I'm going to have to solve. So that's going to be, when I say next one, that's what I mean, is the next one's probably going to be bigger. Just keep in mind, Sona, I left a really cushy job at a bank, right, being whatever I was, right, to go off and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Forget everything, right? I've worked 25 years. I think I should be an entrepreneur now. There's a lot of liability and pressure to deliver. There's a lot of people that I've given my word and my credibility to. If I make a commitment, I'm gonna have to deliver. So anyway, that's long-winded answer. It's a I've never been asked that question, so I really, the way you asked it, so I appreciate it. So,
Yeah, and
and
speaking about entrepreneurship, tell us more about Directrope. I think it's great. You're like being too modest of not talking about either yourself or Directrope. So that's my question.
So Directrope actually started off as an idea on an Excel spreadsheet is tracking accountability of my network, what I was doing for my network and what my network was doing for me. Directrope came to life because of accountability of a network. I realized that people were doing networking activities without really justifying their existence in the network. I think networking should change as a whole. It should be giving type environment. Is if everybody was giving to each other, obviously there's going to be somebody that needs to receive whatever is being given. But right now, is most people network with the idea of give me first, whether it's enterprise wide. If you work for a company, every partner from the company that walks in, it happens a lot in banking, is give me. They walk into offices, what can you give me? But what if that society as a whole was changed into what I can do for you, with nothing in return to be expected? And that's the goal of Directrope, is creating a platform where networking groups are privately created. So I give the power to people to create their own networking groups, their own LinkedIn's. All right. Invite people privately based on their previous relationship. So no random invites, no outsiders, no spamming. But most importantly is that your activity is shown on the platform. Is who you are as a networker is visible to your networking partners. Yes, there's an automation process. You can actually send and receive referrals on the platform, right? You can track status of your referrals for a long term. It gives people, a third party individual, the ability to schedule appointments. So every interaction is a warm handoff. But more importantly, I think visibility is where I'm focused on when it comes to Directrope. Is I don't want people to waste each other's time. I don't want people to say that they're about the relationship when they're really not, right? If you were networking with me, all right, let's see it. Let's network, right? Let's do it. The fact that I mentioned that worldwide, people have RSVP'd worldwide on this call, and that was just, honestly, last night I got a little emotional thinking about it. The fact that you work so hard at networking and growing a network and being able to have such a wide reach and being able to access resources from around the world, my God, that's literally what Directrope was all about. Is being able to bring all these people together and be the validator, be the connector. If I refer you to someone, they know that it's a good source. And that was the goal. That was the mission for me, and that's why I built Directrope. For those of you that have RSVP'd, we're going to get some invites out for a Directrope group where you'll be able to network with everybody on this call. So if you're listening in, know that's coming, and you'll get an invite from either Sona or myself.
Why are referrals like so important, and how are they actually connected to sales? One of your quotes, my favorite, is that people in your network are actually your employees who work free of charge. That's a very practical, that's a very materialistic expression, but I think this whole idea of giving first and giving often goes back to the roots of humanness, yeah, and the society. Because back then there was a society, you helped everyone you could, hoping that if you were in a trouble, the society, your group would help you back. That's how we operate if the market is not in place or if money was not of a deal, right? As you're saying. How do you see, like, how's the networking, like the humanness, and then sales, like the business world? How does these like two work together?
So at the core of it all, Sona, I feel like it's my responsibility to help my network. And when I say my network, I really hold people very close to my soul. Maybe it's just a fault of mine. Is when I'm referring business, I'm thinking what's beneficial for the customer and also what's beneficial to the person in my network. It's my responsibility to help your business grow. Like I said earlier, if enough of people around me grow, we'll grow together. It's okay. Nobody ever got hurt by growing together. But if I start thinking about what's in it for me, only me, then you're no longer of value. The customer is no longer of value. So the reason why referrals are important is not what most people think. It's not simply monetary. I think it's emotional. It's more, gives people the idea that we're in it together, whether it's the customer and whether it's the person in your network. In my mind, and I've tried to say this, maybe I said it before on the call, is the name on the building doesn't matter. Mamble doesn't matter, right? A lot of other companies doesn't. It's the name on the name tag. It's the person that you're dealing with. And for me, when I make a referral, I am that person representing the company. I don't have to work for you, but I do work for you indirectly. So it's a lot about relationship. It's a more emotional and mental aspect of sales. That's why referrals are important for me. Yeah, they do convert better. They come from a trusted source. When I'm referring you and you actually don't deliver, it makes both of us look bad. More importantly, it makes me look bad, right? Because you lose one client, okay, you didn't get it. You're not going to get referrals from me anymore. But I'm not going to have credibility in the market anymore. So the being a connector becomes of more value. Making the right connections becomes of more value. So referrals, yes, they do convert better, but more about building a relationship and a rapport with someone. That's why it's so important to me.
Thank you.
No problem. Dylan's question is, how can you organize all efforts into one cohesive day-to-day schedule? When you figure it out, let me know. No, the cohesiveness, there's individuals. So identifying the individuals that you're working with is super important. Dylan, your personality type, you're very much like me. Is you're doing a million things all at the same time. It's so long as you're progressing in the right direction in the activities that you are doing, understanding that you are not going to be able to accomplish everything. You're not going to accomplish world peace. You're not going to take over the world. Whatever it is, your agenda, you're not going to be able to do it all in one day. It's whatever you choose to do, you do in the right direction. So if you want to go to coffee with your buddy Eddie and sit 2 hours, that 2 hours has to be delivering value for you for the other aspects of your business. Whatever task that you are doing, whatever you're trying to accomplish, just know that's going in the right direction. You're not going to be able to finish all of it. Plain and simple. Yeah, no problem. Let's talk about CRM, and I'll go into the roller coaster. CRMs are unilateral data entry. It's whatever you put in is you're going to get out. So how extensive you use a CRM and how accurately you use a CRM, that's what you're going to get out of it. So do I use a CRM? I'd rather lose my car than lose my phone. So yeah, it's very important for me to use my cell phone. The CRM, I'm not a big fan of CRMs in general. I think they're too cumbersome. There's too much going on, and the value is in using the CRM, not the relationship. So that's just my thought process. Hope that answers the question. The reason why I created Directrope the way I did was I want to make interaction simple. Is let people be people, give them their life back. I don't want to tie them to software. I want them to be able to introduce people to each other, grow their networks, see some value at the end. Yeah, emails is probably the most that I go into, Dylan. Emails is probably the most, emails and texts. So hopefully that answers your question, my friend.
We have a great question from Brian. He's asking, how do you encourage someone's will gap? Yeah, how do you hold them accountable for the will gap?
That's awesome. Is it Brian Kennedy?
Yes.
My guy, Brian. I'm glad you asked that question. So the will gap actually happens both ways in leadership and in the employee base. So a lot of leaders, a lot of managers tend to not take time to develop a relationship, understand motivation and drive of their employees, and they assume that just because they're giving them a paycheck, that the employee is going to work and give them their best. And for me, your employee is your first customer. If you're treating your customers better than your employees, there's a problem there, right? Most of us tend to treat our customers better than we do our employees. Without our employees, we're nothing. Without our teams, we are nothing. Our teams are literally our backbone. So your team, for them to be committed to you, you have to reach deeper into who they are as people. So the value of people becomes the driving factor, at least for me, into the will gap. If you want to drive will and desire and passion, you got to understand motivation. And this is a big mistake that most salespeople make in the sales process as well. Most leaders, most managers make that mistake too, is they think they can blanket motivate. They can motivate everybody the same way. And the number one motivating factor that they attach to everything is money, right? Money is a gap filler. Money is a gap filler for something that someone wants to achieve. Because I guarantee you, if you sat down and spoke to most of your employees, I'm not sure if they have their dream job at the moment. Doesn't matter how successful they are, right? And the question that I usually pose is, if money was no object, what would you be doing?
Yep.
We have to make sure that we are the support system for our employees, that they know that we are functioning as one unit, and my success is their success and their success is my success. So I know, Brian, this was a long-winded answer, but you have to sit down with each individual employee and understand their true drives and motivation and passion, and be a support system for them as much as you're asking them to be for you. So
With Susie, we have a favorite quote for the past year or so. We're telling that we should be hiring our clients and selling to our employees. That's what you're also referring to. Your employees are your number one clients, yeah, are your number one people who need to buy the idea of being in the company with you.
This goes back to the accountability piece, going back to the will gap. Do you have a will gap when it comes to leadership and management? How lazy of a leader or manager are you when it comes to your employees? Even the people or the businesses that are successful, they're not maximizing what they can achieve. And I think that's inherently right, goes right to the will gap. Is let me hit my goals, whether I hit my goal in January or I hit it in December. I hit my goal, I'm done. Thank you very much. Let me get my paycheck and go home. That's what most people say. But once you start raising the floor, not the ceiling, you'll start making your team and yourself uncomfortable enough to grow because you can never go beneath the floor. Most people have that floor really low and they have the ceiling really high. So good luck getting to that ceiling. Oh, just wait, I can do this, I can do. Well, make sure your floor is continuously rising rather than your ceiling. In conclusion, Sonajan, what I'll say is I'll be happy to answer anybody's question. Send me a message via LinkedIn, via Directrope. No, I'm just kidding. But it's Eddie at directrope.com. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot it over to me. I'm pretty good at responding. I usually tend to respond within 24 hours. If you haven't heard from me, either I died or I don't like you. So preferably it's the die one. It's all about all of us, you guys. For those of you that are listening, just know that the intentions are good. If you grow, hopefully we can track it back to this call. If you see any success, you can pay it forward and help somebody else grow. That's what it's about: community, society, humanity. Just know that it's all about each other, right? We live in a crazy world where everybody's all about themselves. Let's try to change that as people, as at least our little community here that's listening to this call. Let's try to change that. All right, let's focus on humanity, improving ourselves, improving each other's lives, making things better for themselves. Too much crap going on in the world. I'm not all about that. If you lived it, you survived it. Let's help people grow. We have that power. As humans, we've survived for so many decades and so many years and so many centuries and millennia, right? Let's not take the humanity out of it all. It's not all about business, not all about sales. Be a human being. Do something for somebody else for a change. All right. So that's my kind of 2 cents at the end. So
Thank you, Edjan. This was awesome, as always. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all the wisdom. And thank you, everyone, for joining and being a part of this first session of Mumble Talks. We will do actually our best to grab and get more of Eddie kind people, people who have a lot to share, and people who are actually willing to share. So if you know professionals in the areas of business growth, including sales, marketing, engineering, product development, please shoot me the names as well, because I'm doing my own like hunting for people that have a lot to share but are for some reason are silent. I call it like the Dunning-Kruger curse, not the curve. For everyone that knows about the Dunning-Kruger curve, is that the less people know, the more they talk. The more people know, the less they talk. I think we need to change that.
thank you for everything, you guys. Hopefully, we'll talk soon. We'll do it again.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
Have a great
Bye,
day. Have a
everybody.
great night. Yeah. Have a great week, life, and year.
2024. Let's go.